All right, so up to this point, we'll be able to render dynamic headings, dynamic images, dynamic raw HTML. Let's focus now on rendering the iframe. And the iframe, we're going to have the same problem that we had when rendering the raw HTML, right? The trust problem here, right? Is that this URL, right, is a link to a separate website, and that link goes out to YouTube.
Hey, good to see you, man. I flew to Maui to see my best friend.
And so what? What we want to do here is to buy that boat, and we really want to be able to embed this content, right? This iframe. This is what we want to embed in there, and we'll notice that all these iframes pretty much look the same, right? The only thing that changes from one iframe to the next, right, is this ID at the end, right? That ID. Now, if somebody was creating content and dragging a new widget and whatnot, asking the only thing that they would need to copy, right, is maybe the size that we want, right, and then the ID of the a YouTube iframe that we want to create, right? Everything else is static, right? We can generate on the fly, yeah, right? But asking a user to come in and copy this might be a little bit too much. More typically, more easily for the end user would be to click on share and just copy this entire URL, right? Although we only really need this ID, right? But to make it easier on our end users, we're going to allow them to copy this URL and paste it into our content management system. Yes, and that's exactly what we have. Right, that's exactly what we have in our data model. Right, we have a URL that includes the ID that we really want to include in there. Okay, all right. So to create the YouTube iframe, let's look at the template here for the iframe. Let's grab it right there. Let's grab that and let's drag it up into where we want to include the YouTube widget. So there it is, right? So what we want to be able to do is render this URL. We want to dynamically create this URL, right, from the widget URL, right? And the widget URL has that ID at the end. Yes. Right, that ID at the end. So what we're going to do is we're going to say, we can go back to the model. We say model get YouTube embed URL, and we're going to pass it the widget.url. Yes, all right. So let's implement that. Let's implement that in the controller. Let's create a function that will allow us to do that. Right, and implement it in a function of the same name. And here's the URL, right? So this is a YouTube link, the YouTube link, and that link right now looks like this right here. And we need to convert that into what? We need to convert it into the following structure. Share. It needs to look like this instead. Right, this is the structure of the URL. Okay, so it needs to look like this. So var embed URL is equals to that, but we don't have the ID. We don't have the ID. We need the ID. Okay, we need the ID. So where can we get the ID? From the YouTube link, which has this structure, right? It's some link where the ID is at the end. Right, so we need to parse that out from the URL. So what we could do is just explode this into its own little strings, right, and just keep the last one there, right? So to do that, maybe we can use split, right? This is just regular JavaScript function that can split a string, and you can give it a splitter character. And what this is going to do is going to create an array of strings, right? All these strings are going to be included there. And the last element in that array is going to be our ID. Make sense? Okay? So this is going to be our var YouTube link parts. Now, these are all the parts of the URL, and so the ID is going to be that very last element, right? So it's going to be that array sub this dot length -1. Right, so that's the ID, way at the end. Okay, everybody okay? So the embedded URL is going to be just the embedded URL concatenated with the with this ID, and that's the ID we're going to send back for the iframe, right? So we're going to just return embed URL. Let's do a console log embed URL to see what it came out to be. So if we go back, to the console, it looks like this is the URL. Looks like this is the URL. .com. Let's see. Let's see what it looks like. It looks right. I think that's right. But notice that it's complaining of the same thing that we did last time, right? It's complaining about the SCE, right? So to fix that, we're going to use exactly the same technique that we did earlier. We're going to say SCE, and we're going to say trust, right? Trust. Now, since this is going to be used not to render dynamic HTML, but it's going to be embedding an entire website, right? It's an entire, so it's even worse, right? It's even more dangerous. So these are included. These are considered to be resources, an entire resource, right? And so there's a trust as resource. I think that's the name. Wait, let me see. What's it called? Let's see. So it's trust as resource. Okay, yeah, trust as resource URL. Right. We're going to pass that in. Right, and then we're going to try and render this. All right, there it is. Our boat is back again. Right? Everybody okay? That makes sense? Right? So I think we dealt with all the trust issues, right? And they're being embedded correctly, the HTML, the images, the raw HTML, and then the iframe. Everybody okay? Anybody have a question? Make sense? All right. All right, so let's keep going.